Jetfire and Jetstorm. Twin brothers that go from jet to robot. But these heroes also have the power to combine into the unstoppable Autobot, Safeguard.
Transformers animated fans have a lot of love for Jetfire and Jetstorm, but their journey to the screen was filled with legal snags, animation oversights, and creative compromises that left no one from the show's creative team fully satisfied. So let's not waste time with a lengthy intro, and we'll dive right into this. The twins were actually a lingering idea from Transformers Hero, the in-development series that gradually ship-Theseused itself until it became Transformers Animated.
So this is what it feels like to be a hero.
As seen in this concept art by character designer Sean Galloway, Jokester twins with fire and wind themed powers were originally intended to feature in the main cast. Executive producer Sam Register pitched the story idea that they'd combine into one X-Wing inspired vehicle, and Hasbro partner Takara pushed for a robot combination, inspired by Harayu and Inryu forming Koryujin from their 1997 series King of the Braves Gaugager. The idea eventually fell by the wayside as the series took its final form. Animated's head toy designer Eric Sabanailer continued to push for their inclusion though, and the show's core creative team of Matt Youngberg, Derek Wyatt, and Marty Eisenberg ultimately found a role for them later in the show's run as new Elite Guard recruits. The characters were named Jetfire and Jetstorm, two pre-existing names Hasbro had trademarked in its arsenal, despite these two versions sharing no similarities with any predecessors. The toys and characters were redesigned to match the animated aesthetic, with art director Derek Wyatt doing a minor draw-over near the end of their development cycle, during which he gave Jetstorm facial details reminiscent of his Beast Machine's counterpart. The twins were given their own exclusive box set in US markets, which included an exclusive pack-in comic, issue 6 of IDW's Arrival series titled First and Second in Flight. Written by head writer Marty Eisenberg, the story introduced the twins as victims of an explosion in Cybertron's industrial sector. They're rebuilt by the Elite Guard as super soldiers, and their flight capabilities are justified as upgrades enabled by downloading specs from Starscream while he was briefly in captivity during the second season. This accidentally implies that Starscream was the first Decepticon the Autobots have ever captured throughout the entire multi-million-year war.
Impossible! No Autobot flies!
During a showdown in a simulator, the twins shock everyone by combining into their Gestalt form Safeguard before they're formally granted Elite Guard status and get to join the team. The twins are an interesting case because they're one of the few instances of Hasbro pushing for the inclusion of a character in animated rather than stemming from the core creative team. Their inclusion was largely unintrusive, especially in comparison to Hasbro's demands in many other shows. A large dragon in Transformers Prime was not the writer's idea, but if you pay attention, you notice several details that are off. Derek Wyatt grew up as a fan of Transformers Generation 1, and he made a concerted effort to draw classic characters reminiscent of their original counterparts at every available opportunity. He and Matt Youngberg would push for some component of their original characterizations to remain intact, especially if they were emotionally attached to the characters. However, they had no say in Jetfire, resulting in a lone instance of a Generation 1 character in animated bearing no resemblance to its namesake. Derek stated in 2009 that if a more traditional Jetfire character were to appear in the show, he'd be content calling him Skyfire, the name he was forced to take in the original Generation 1 cartoon due to licensing issues. During development, the character's combined form was intended to be called Firestorm. However, Hasbro couldn't clear that trademark due to the DC character of the same name. The title Safeguard was slapped on and shipped out to retailers, something which Derek contested for years afterward. You can't blame him, seeing as Firestorm makes infinitely more sense and is considerably cooler. It's fitting that, once again, a version of Jetfire's name had to be changed due to legal complications. Notice how Safeguard is never referred to by name in the series or First and Second in Flight. One has to assume there was a conscious effort to never acknowledge the dissatisfactory Safeguard name in fiction. Once the third season finally debuted, Jetfire and Jetstorm were featured in a hefty 5 episodes, with Russian accents provided by series regulars Tom Kenny and Phil Lamar. Their speech pattern is seemingly inspired by non-fluent English speakers, swapping the order of verbs and nouns, mixing plural and singular verbs, and many more quirks associated with those who don't know English as their first language.
It's okay. We know who are you. You are a two-timer. What else is to know?
And despite their lovable personalities and their naive ignorance to Sentinel's cruelty, they don't leave much of an impact on the grand scope of the show. The twins are the only prominent characters in Transformers Animated who don't meaningfully affect the plot at all. Their largest role, as is typical, is in their introductory showcase episode, Season 3's Where Is Thy Sting, as part of the Elite Guard force hunting Wasp on Earth. Their core role really boils down to them being numbers for Sentinel to command. Ultra Magnus is no longer with the Elite Guard in this arc, so it'd otherwise just be Jazz and Sentinel. They have a brief scuffle with Optimus and Ratchet midway through the episode, but this is quickly resolved through communication and isn't mentioned again afterwards. It could be cut, and the story wouldn't change, making it the single longest inconsequential scene in the entire series. Afterwards, there's an action set piece where they pursue Bumblebee. Looking at the roster of characters in play, the antagonizer role could have been played by Sentinel just as easy. The twins don't factor into the climax, outside of 2 lines commenting on it.
Video games? Wild, isn't it? I play winner!
And that's it. They don't speak again for the rest of the episode. There's not a single other character who's irrelevant to the story of their showcase episode. You couldn't cut Soundwave from Sound and Fury, or Wreck-Gar from Garbage In, Garbage Out. You could not replace Swindle with one of the show's other Decepticons in SUV, Society of Ultimate Villainy. Every other character in this show is essential to their respective showcase story from beginning to end, and the central core of each episode's climax. Meanwhile, the Jet Twins only have a handful of lines and literally stand by on the sidelines to watch the resolution happen to the other characters. The twins serve nothing more than a peripheral role in all subsequent appearances, and their inclusion could once again be cut in every instance without changing the story. They help hunt rogue Decepticons and combine into Firestorm one last time in 5 Servos of Doom. They transport Sentinel to Dinobot Island and take down the Dinobots in Predacons Rising. They're captured by Decepticon prisoners and fight to defend their flagship in Decepticon Air. They hunt Ratchet and assist Sentinel's preparation of Fortress Maximus, and This Is Why I Hate Machines. In all 4 instances, they have minimal lines and provide a little more than exposition and status reports to Sentinel.
Energy signature has gone to under the ground. But his big power reading in center of island.
Their power level and competence is wildly variable. Sometimes standing idly by while Swindle captures them, Swindle who was defeated by Professor Princess and Bumblebee, and sometimes they'll defeat the Dinobots without breaking a sweat, laughing about how easy it was.
Are they looking enough distracted to you, brother? Big one still wiggles a little.
In one episode, they're able to effortlessly take down Ramjet. 4 episodes later, they're wholly outmatched by him. From an animation perspective, the twins got the short end of the stick as well. By the time they were introduced, the show was visually well past its prime. Mook Animation was tasked with animating the entire 3rd season, as opposed to only half the episodes they did in the previous 2 seasons, and one has to assume this left them severely rushed and overworked given the quality of their 3rd season output. As with most characters in Season 3, there are very few shots of the twins that actually look properly on model and well drawn. All the details are mushed together and severely oversimplified, and we just never got to see them with the sharper animation quality of their earlier run.
Diversion? What kind of version? Means for we to blow something up.
Model sheets were created for them, depicting how they should have looked using their powers. However, they were never drawn according to this model, with the exception of one crudely drawn blurry shot of Jetfire's wrist and Where Is Thy Sting. First and second in flight at least drew the twins according to their models, but given there was little effort to match the show's art style, it doesn't quite hit the same. I can't help but get the impression there wasn't a lot of passion for the Jet Twins from the show's core creative team. They make the most of their limited screen presence by being cute, lovable, and entertaining, but it seems quite evident they were included solely out of obligation from Hasbro, and they wouldn't have been in the show if not for Eric Siebenahler's persistence. To clarify, I don't think anyone disliked the twins. If Derek disliked something, he'd be very publicly disgruntled about it, and there's no sign of him ever holding a grudge against them. In his blog post from 2009, he defended their toys as being super cool. It's not an instance of Hasbro forced their toy needs and ruined the show. I think it's more like Hasbro going, pretty please, and Marty and the gang just going like, yeah, alright, sure. So what would the roles have been if the series wasn't cancelled and kept going? Well, Derek tweeted at one point that he would have loved to take Jetstorm in a Beast Machines-inspired direction with his characterization. Poor Jetstorm? How the hell would that even happen?
Then these 2 lugnuts have to come along and mess up my timing.
During Marty Eisenberg's earliest pitch for the 4th season, an episode concept entitled How You Gonna Keep 'Em Down on the Energon Farm would have featured Jetfire and Jetstorm going on a vacation with Bulkhead to an Energon farm, where they deal with Decepticon activity. However, the Energon Farm storyline wound up folded into the outline for the trial of Megatron when Cartoon Network wanted it to be a 3-parter, making it pretty unlikely we would have gotten this episode if a 4th season was greenlit. Their minor role in the trial of Megatron outline is more of the same, delivering exposition to Sentinel with no real stake in the narrative. At the end of the day, Jetfire and Jetstorm are really fun characters. They add a nice wrinkle to the dynamics of the Elite Guard in Ultra Magnus' absence. Their inclusion is to the series' benefit, yet their lack of relevance isn't necessarily to its detriment either. I wouldn't classify anything I've said in this video as a criticism of the show at all, it's just something I've observed over the years. I can't help but feel like they could have had more going for them to make their inclusion pack more of a punch and create more emotional resonance, but it wasn't necessary. If it were necessary for the story, it would have happened.
And his fellow double agents Bulbous Green One and Cycle Motor.
Fellow double agents, Bulbous Green, Bulkhead, and Prowl